So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Asphalian's webinar, Reactivation of EMA Policy 0070, Introduction and Key Recommendations for a Successful Publication. Before starting, just a couple of things to take into consideration about the webinar. It will last approximately 45 minutes, including Q&As at the end. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat, and we will try to reply them at the end of the webinar. We will also send you the presentation per email, as well as the link to the recording next week. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you our speakers today. Yvette Camarasa, Associate Director. Yvette has a degree in pharmacy and a master in research, development, and drug control from the University of Barcelona. She has over 10 years experience in regulatory procedures and project management. She's also well experienced with the clinical data disclosure for transparency policy 0070 compliance. And also today, Nuria García Pazos, Regulatory Affairs Manager. Nuria has a degree in biotechnology and 2 master degrees on the fields of pharmaceutical industry and regulatory affairs. She has extensive experience in clinical data disclosure, including policy 0070 and clinical trials regulation, among others. In today's webinar, they will review the latest updates on the policy, timelines, CCI challenges, and pre-submission meeting recommendations, as well as share some tricks and tips on how to successfully overcome this new requirement. So Yvette and Nuria will take it from here. Yvette, please, whenever you are ready. Sorry, Yvette, I think we can hear you properly.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
So, sorry, thank you very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. Can you see my screen, right? Okay, I understand.
Yes.
It's okay. Thank you. So, we have here the agenda. These are the topics that we are going to cover today. We are going to talk about an introduction of the policy 0070, a brief introduction, a general introduction to be all in the same page, and we have the basic knowledge in order to follow the webinar properly. Then we are also going to talk about the relaunch of the policy from this September. We are also going to discuss about anonymization strategy and techniques. And my colleague Nuria Garcia will explain you about recommendations for a successful publication, commercially confidential information management, and also recommendations for a fruitful pre-submission meeting and a take-home messages. So before I start, I would like to ask the audience one question to check where everybody is about the policy. So there should be a poll that comes up on your screen. Is the poll working?
It's not yet available, but I think our colleagues are managing.
Well, the question was related about how familiar are you with the policy. Then it's not working. Okay, no problem. So we can skip. If you want to answer from in the meeting chat, how familiar are you with the policy? Maybe you can answer yes if you are familiar with it, or no if you are not. So then we are going to move. Okay, let's kick off with this introductory presentation about the policy 0070. The EMA will publish the clinical data submitted by pharmaceutical companies to support the request for marketing authorization, extension of indication, and line extension that are assessed by the CHMP. Basically, the data in scope includes the following documents: clinical overviews, clinical summaries, clinical study reports and study protocols and its amendments, sample case report forms, and also statistical methods and its amendments. I'm pretty sure you're very familiar with this documentation that well relates to module 2.5, 2.7, and some of the 5.3. Then basically the objective of the EMA is to increase the transparency. What the EMA states literally in the website is that by proactively publishing clinical data, the EMA intends to help to avoid duplication of clinical trials and encourage development of new medicines, also to build public trust and confidence in EMA scientific and decision-making processes, and also to allow the academics and researchers to reassess the clinical data. All of this based in the public, in the interest of public health. Then just a bit of background here. The policy was launched back in January 2015, but it was suspended in 2018, partially because of the Brexit, partially because of the COVID, and also because of a lack of resources in the EMA. And during the suspension of this policy, the EMA reactivated the publication of clinical data for COVID-19 treatments and vaccines in order to maximize the transparency of these products because of the high interest from the public. Then the EMA finally resumed the operation of the policy from this September. We are going to have a deep look to this relaunch policy. A gradual relaunch. We have the EMA held a webinar this May this year. And then they announced how the policy will work now. We are in step 1, in this phase 1, that is operative from this September 2023. Then it affects to initial marketing authorization applications for new active substances that receive a CHM opinion in September 2023 and onwards. It includes positive and negative CHM opinion, all are subject to publication, and also withdrawn products. In this step 1, obviously all the transparency related to COVID products will continue. And they announced phase 2 that is expected in the course of 2024, of next year. And here is expected that all the kind of centralized procedure applications will be affected for this policy 0070 and will be object to disclosure. Then we have included here a summary of changes that the EMA published in the webinar and that we have been experienced from September. The EMA is emphasizing an early preparation of the documentation. You will see in the next slide the timeline, and you will see that it's a very tight calendar, so you need to be ready in advance. Also, a new change, we are not going to explain how it worked before the relaunch, but we are including here some updates. The sponsors will receive the invitation letter by email on day 121 of the procedure. This invitation letter will include the question and answer document, also a draft of the list of expected documents that are considered in scope of publication and that will need to be agreed with the agency. Also a submission checklist and a new and mandatory anonymization report template. Also, a new update is an updated timeline that we are going to see in the next slide. And The EMA also offers in this invitation letter to have a pre-submission meeting in order to discuss in better detail, to agree with scope of the documents, the anonymization strategy, the use of a vendor, CCIs, etc. Nuria is going to explain in better detail this point. And well, the EMA encourages the applicants to not wait until the pre-submission meeting or the reception of this letter and take advantage in the initial pre-submission interactions with the EMA for the marketing authorization to discuss about the policy. Here we have a detailed timeline for the policy, how it works now. Then here there are some milestones that we should consider. For example, on day, well, I already said that on day 121 we will receive the invitation letter. So on day 181, the window for the submission of the redaction proposal document package, we will see in the next slide what it contains and how it works, but is open in order to submit the application with the redaction proposal package, and then you will have until 30 days post the CHM opinion in order to submit this redaction proposal package. This is an example for an initial marketing authorization, but as we said, it can also apply to extension, new indications. So the timeline is a bit different, but more or less it's the same consideration. When you submit your package, you will have, well, you will receive the validation. If it's not valid, you will resubmit. Then the EMA will issue a redaction conclusion. I would like that you pay attention that we are talking about maximum days, so you need to be ready because the EMA can issue the redaction conclusion previously this set date, because they are only maximum days. So as soon as you receive the redaction conclusion, you will only have 7 days in order to answer to the EMA for an agreement on CCIs and 14 days for the personal related information. We will explain you what CCIs are and personal information in case you are not aware. Then after you have an agreement with the EMA, you will need to submit the final package, and the information contained in this final package will be disclosed to the general public. From the CHM opinion until the disclosure of the documentation, there is a maximum of 120 days. Regarding the documents to be submitted, well, as I said, the documentation will be disclosed to the general public, so you need to redact or anonymize the documentation when you are submitting to the EMA, and obviously when you are disclosing to the public. So you need to ensure that you are protecting personal data and also commercial confidential information. We talked previously about this redaction proposal package and the final redacted document package. What does it mean? The redaction proposal package is the one used for assessment with the authorities, and it's not subject to publication. And then the final redacted document package is the one that contains information that will be disclosed to the public and that will be properly redacted and censored. So the documents that are going to include in this package are the cover letter and annexes, the clinical documents that we previously discussed about it, model 2.5, 2.7, and 5.3, then the justification tables and the anonymization report. The cover letter and justification tables are not published, but included in the assessment of the authorities. Then let's talk a little about the anonymization strategy and anonymization techniques. Well, as we previously said, well, the anonymization will be based in personal information, and CCIs will be explained by my colleague Nuria later. So about the anonymization, well, as we said, the clinical data must be anonymized when submitted to the EMA. Then we have two types of variables of identifiers, the ones we call direct identifiers that are, for example, participant ID, and the indirect identifiers, for example, age, sex, race, etc. So it's up to the applicant how to anonymize these documents, but the set of rules that are used in the whole package must be included in the anonymization report that we already presented before. That it's a template, a PDF template with all the information. Well, here in the right, you can see what contains this anonymization report form. And well, we are not going to enter into detail, but here it's stated. Then regarding the anonymization strategy, we have two different approaches for evaluating the risk of re-identification. We have this qualitative risk assessment approach, where the risk is given in a qualitative scale. It is expected to be low to very low risk. And then we have this quantitative risk assessment approach, where the risk is measured in a numeric value. Then the objective of this anonymization strategy is to balance and to reduce the risk of identification while maintaining the most data utility possible, reducing this risk. And here we are going to talk about some anonymization techniques available. The reduction or masking is about to remove the values of the variables. Maybe it's the most common and known technique. You are just masking the information with a blue box and PPD in black for personal data, and with a black box and red CCI letters for CCIs. Then there is another technique that it's called randomization. This consists about a replacement of the original value with a similar value, but altering the veracity of the data. For example, for data offsets and etc. And then we have the generalization technique, that it consists in deleting the attributes of the data by modifying the respective scale. For example, a person that was born on 19th of August 1978, you can dilute this information, generalizing the information to 1978. For example, you have a participant that is 25 years old, and then you can generalize the information in a range of 10 years, for example, and set between 20 and 29 years old. So the most suitable technique or the combination of different techniques should be identified and are up to the applicant, but they need to be established in the anonymization rules, as we said previously. And then Nuria is going to explain the recommendations for a successful publication.
Okay, thank you, Yvette. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would like to start. Maybe now the poll will be working. Launching a question. So just to know if from the audience you have any plan on ongoing CP centralized submission that it's affected by policy 0070. So okay, my colleagues are just including the question. So if you would like to participate, that would be great. So on this first slide, I will provide a whole overview of the procedure for policy 0070 and its management. And so talking about these key points for managing all these requirements. So the first to take into account is to assess if your centralized procedure submission will be affected by policy 0070. So eventually, all products would be affected. So after the implementation of the policy, but yeah, as Yvette was mentioned, the relaunch is being progressively implemented. So it's important to understand if your CP submission will be affected by the policy, and to plan, so by when is this submission expected from your side. Then it's very important to create awareness and to inform to all stakeholders involved in the process. So it's very important that all the departments that will be working on this policy preparation package are aware that they are needed, their expertise is needed for the preparation of this package, and by when. It's very important to set some timelines and a work plan to ensure the availability of all the persons involved, people involved, and then also to assess if you need to seek support from a vendor or to allocate additional internal resources, because it's a lot of work. So then it's also important to assess the scope and the list of expected documents that will be impacted by the policy. This, as Yvette said, the list of expected documents is shared via Excel file by the EMA clinical data publication team when they send the invitation letter. But if you have a future submission that will be impacted by the policy, you are aware of all the documents that you are submitting within your ECTD sequence. So it's important that you also track all the documents that would be impacted by the policy, and to assess the scope, because assessing the in or out of scope sections will give you the magnitude of how big will be your submission. So this would help you to determine the workload for all your team. Then it's also very important to define and to review CCI, which is commercially confidential information. This is a very important topic. After this slide, I will go into details about this, but it's important that within your company, you prepare or help creating a CCI listing, and to elaborate the justification that where you base the CCI definition of those pieces of information. Then you should also select the risk assessment approach that you will be following, either qualitative or quantitative, because all this information will be discussed in the pre-submission meeting with the EMA clinical data publication team. All these aspects should be aligned with them in this meeting, and any doubt or query that you have can be resolved in this interaction with the EMA. Then after this meeting or before, so I mean, the reduction and anonymization implementation can already be started before the meeting, but yeah, maybe it's also a good idea to implement after this alignment. So this is the part of the process where you will implement the anonymization rules that you have set, and the CCI reduction within all the documents impacted and included in the submission. Then it's part of the process also to perform a quality check, and key to maintain a revision tracker, so some kind of Excel or other tool that will help you to check what documents have been reviewed, in which phase are every document, and who has been responsible for the review of each piece of information. Then when you have reached an internal agreement and all the sections are final, it's time to reach the publishing and submission team, because these packages, the redaction proposal document and final redacted document, must be submitted via ECTD sequence. So it's also important that you reach your publishing team so they are aware where at what time the submission is expected, so they can they can book a slot for this task. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we will be talking about the management of commercially confidential information. Next. Okay. Yeah, now I see it.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I think it's with a bit of delay for me. Okay, so the definition of commercially confidential information is any information contained in the clinical reports which is not in the public domain or publicly available, and where disclosure may undermine the legitimate economic interest of the applicant or marketing authorization holder. So these are the main 2 points for the definition. The first, that is not on the public domain, and then that the disclosure would undermine an economic interest of the company. So one of the first things to do is to confirm that the information of your candidates identified as possible CCI are not already on the public domain. For this is some recommendations would be to compile specific websites, databases, and documents that include information regarding your product. So maybe to have a list of, so we have the conduct clinical trials, that we have the reports in ct.gov, in Udacity, we have this publication, we have the information that we have published on our company website, etc. It's important to have some kind of list so you can check these sources of information. And also the fact that certain pieces of information are not in the public domain does not necessarily mean that they should be considered as CCI. This is just one part of the definition, because the other is to determine how the disclosure of that information would undermine the economic interest of the company. And this is very important, that the justification provided to the EMA clearly shows how this economic impact would affect the company. There's also some other considerations. So we could define CCI like short-term CCI versus long-term CCI. So it might be that some information would be very important to protect during a specific time, during the development or regulatory pathway of your product, but not in the long term. So we also encourage you to identify these different types of information. So it might be that some information will be used for a patent claiming, and in the time that you are discussing with the EMA about this sharing this information, it might not be clear how it will undermine, but if this affects your patent claiming, it's a strong justification. So you could use that. But then in the future, it would be released to the public. So in the long term, it would not be CCI anymore. Then for the selection, the definition, so to find what is CCI for the company, a multidisciplinary team should be created, including subject matter experts, CCI, clinical, intellectual property, and legal colleagues, because there are many aspects to take into account, so to determine how an information can be a CCI or how this would impact. And then very important also, and highly encouraged now, in addition, because now all the clinical trials regulation as well and some other policies are aiming for expanding the transparency requirements. So important to manage CCI tracker from early development phases. So you can already trace what is this CCI information within your clinical trial protocols, publication, etc. Next. Okay. So in relation with CCI, the EMA has identified in the policy 0070 Annex 3 certain types of information that may potentially be considered as CCI. But the applicant should not consider all these types of information as being CCI. The reduction proposals should be based on strong justifications that will explain how the disclosure of the information would have an economic impact or competitive impact for the applicant. Here you will have the link to the Policy 70 document, and we have included here some examples. So, for example, during the product development program of the medicine, there might be some exploratory endpoints included in the clinical trials that will be supporting future indications or future registrations that have not been released to the public, that are the plans of the company for future development and future registrations. So this might have a justification to protect them as CCI. Then other information of, for example, specifications on company essays. So if the company has developed some specific technique, all the specifics of that technique are subject to be considered CCI, because it and their release will help other competitors to gain knowledge of all this research, and they would need to invest less resources for those assays or procedures. But you will have a more extensive list within this document in the Annex 3 of Policy 0070. Next, please. I don't see it yet, but no. Okay. Yeah, no. Okay. Then also the EMA on the procedural guidance has grouped some types of information that they do not consider CCI, and the rejection codes they will use when they assess the proposals of the applicant. So there are 5 types of rejection codes used by the EMA. The first will be for information that is already available in the public domain or publicly available. The EMA, I don't know how they do it, but they can find information that the applicant didn't consider that it was published there, but the EMA found some places or documents where the information was already disclosed. So this is clearly a rejection code. Then rejection code number 2 is the information that does not bear any innovative features, so that is based on common knowledge. The rejection of the EMA is based on the information that has been proposed by the applicant reflects approaches or decisions that are based on widely known practices or regulatory and scientific information. So that is not anything innovative that a competitor would gain a specific benefit from. Rejection code number 3 is additional information where the disclosure of which would be in the public interest, and this is for elements that are considered relevant for the understanding of the documents published. So if there is any specific piece where its removal or reduction would prevent for the understanding of the document, this might be considered for the EMA to be rejected. And then rejection code 4 and 5 are usually included together. So the first is information lacking sufficient justification, where the justification does not clearly demonstrate how the disclosure would undermine the economic interest or the competitive position of the company. The EMA will use this a lot. So they will need to clearly understand how this has an economic impact, and they will discuss it a lot. If it's not clear for them, they will use this rejection code number 4. Then for rejection code number 5 is that the information lacking relevant justification. So this is used when you have provided a justification, but it's not really related to the piece of information that you have proposed to be redacted. So they will question you on that. So when you prepare the justification for the proposed CCI, all your rationale must be included. Yvette, the following. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
All your rationale must be included in the justification tables. So these templates are just related to CCI. As Yvette explained, all the anonymization rules for PPD are included in the anonymization report. And here you can use a combination of what the EMA proposed as possibly CCI with the rejection codes. So you can prepare your justification. And it's expected a very detailed rationale from the applicant. So a strong justification must be built by the whole team. Okay, so next. So now we will be talking about recommendation of the for the pre-submission meeting and some take-home messages, and we will give room for questions. So the pre-submission meeting is a meeting with the EMA clinical data publication team for alignment on the scope, the anonymization methodology, and other aspects applicable to the compliance with policy 0070. In our experience, the clinical data publication team is very kind and open for discussion. I mean, this pre-submission meeting is a conversation between the applicant and the EMA team to be aligned on the preparation of this package. And they are very open to help the applicant. They understand that a lot of applicants they have not experienced previous experience in this procedure, so they are very nice. But they will question you a lot for your CCIs as well, so be prepared. The general structure of the meeting is a brief introduction of the attendees and the company, then some background information and regulatory status of the concerned medicinal product, and then it will start the questions and doubts regarding the procedure. So to define the timelines, how the communications will be managed, and CCI management as well. So for timelines, it might be that you would need an extension, maybe because you have a very big package. This could be negotiated with the EMA clinical data disclosure team. Then for CCI management, this is an opportunity. If you have all your CCIs, the proposals for CCIs identified, is an opportunity to discuss with them. So to provide them in advance with the justification tables and discuss some rejections or justifications during the meeting is the opportunity to discuss here. But also the EMA, in our experience, has agreed to review the CCI justifications after the meeting, but before the submission of the reduction, the draft proposal package. So you can have a clear view if some CCIs will be rejected. So not to invest many time in finding this information within the documents. This is something that you can avoid with prior confirmation with EMA. Then to agree on the list of expected documents and on the anonymization strategy. So either on qualitative, quantitative approach and some specifics. For example, if you have any doubt on the reference population to be used, if there is some additional reductions needed for blinding protections, if the trials are still ongoing, and then to talk about identifiers with high data utility, which is a new topic requested in the anonymization report form, and any deviations. So the EMA is open for discussing all these topics. Yeah, I think I'm running late. So just take-home messages and summary of recommendations. So to create awareness within your company of transparency policies and all transparency policies we are talking here. So either policy 0070, clinical trials regulation, access to documents with policy 0043. Yeah, I mean, the tendency now is to be more open and to share more information publicly. Then to start early with the preparation of your policy 0070 submission, to establish a CCI tracker for early development phases, also to communicate efficiently with all the stakeholders during the preparation of the package. So for CCI revisions, PPD anonymization, the quality checks, and ECTD publishing. And also to build a very good relationship with the EMA clinical data publication team, be collaborative with them, comply with the set deadlines, and inform them of any change during the procedure. So if they are happy, you will be happier. So, and you, it might be that you meet them again if you are managing another product registration. So this would be all the messages, and thank you all. So now maybe you have some questions.
Yes, thank you, Yvette and Nuria, for this fantastic presentation. We will now go over the questions. We have a couple of them now. First question from Christine Gru. Are those EMA codes also used when assessing reduction of CCI in EU clinical trial documents submitted in clinical trials information system?
Okay, so great question. There are no resources to analyze the reductions proposed and submitted via CTIS. So for the clinical documents affected for transparency on clinical trials, there is no this assessment. There are no specific teams reviewing the documents submitted. But it might be that in the future they said teams for reviewing your documentation, but not at this moment. But it's important to understand that the information you publish here, you will need to take this into account when applying for policy 0070, and as well with the implementation of clinical trials regulation, it's also a requirement to submit the CSR of clinical trials according to regulations regulation via CTIS. So it's important. So for us, it's better that you prepare the policy 0070 submission, which includes the CSR, and then to use that specific document for publication in CTIS.
Thank you, Nuria. So another question from Adrià Garrido. For this policy 0070, do we have a timeline for an accelerated assessment procedure?
As far as I know, there is no timeline published for this kind of procedure, but it's something that it should be taken into account, for example, in the pre-submission interactions, and also you can request you can ask a question to the service desk in the EMA. They give some instructions how to ask the question, but I think that you need to include CDP, clinical data publication, in the title, and then ask the question to the disclosure group. So they are very open to help you and to discuss the topics in advance. They are really collaborative with this topic. Yeah.
Thank you, Yvette. There's another question from Ana Ruiz. How can we manage the publication of CCR under policy 0070 and CTR at the same time? Is there any guideline to manage both publications at the same time?
Okay, so there is not any guidance published about that, but when talking about CTR, CTIS, they say that they might be publishing some additional guidance on how both policies or both transparency requirements can be aligned. This is not done yet, but from CTIS forum meetings is something that they take into account. But for now, there is no specific guidance on this. our recommendation would be to follow the same principles for reduction and anonymization that you will be following in policy 0070. And the timeline is very similar because it's within 30 days after the opinion or the closure of the procedure. So they would be in parallel. Our recommendation would be to use the same document and take into account that for CTIS, at the moment, there is no specific assessment.
Perfect. Thank you, Nuria. And then I don't know if we have time. We had also a couple of questions that were sent by email. Maybe we have time for one of them. Yvette, do you know already if this will be applicable to biosimilars too?
Well, as I said, in the course of 2024, there will be launched the step 2. It's expected, and it will be applicable to all kind of products, so also biosimilars, generics, and no new active substances. I don't think that the EMA has a clear date when this will happen, so it's not really published, but they told that it will be during the course of 2024.
Perfect. Thank you, Yvette. And yeah, we have time for the last question. How is policy 0070 related to transparency required by clinical trials regulation? Nuria, I don't know if you want to answer
so
that.
this is in line with the questions already answered. So I mean, the principles are the same because CTR defines PPD and CCI in the same way as policy 0070. But there is no specific assessment for CTR transparency. What we recommend is that the CCI that you have identified is for all procedures, for all the information related to that product, and that also the PPD would be managed in using the same approach. So our recommendation would be to follow the same approach, but we expect more guidance to be published in the future.
So thank you. It's a wrap. Thank you, Yvette and Nuria, and thanks to all attendees. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we will send you the presentation shortly, as I mentioned at the beginning. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.